You're listening to Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. Small town feel with big time ideas. After all, you are entitled to Brad's opinion. Here's your host, Brad Allard.
Well, nice cold day. How about you, Josh? Have any trouble getting down here?
Wasn't too bad, no.
Yeah, it's slow, but that's about it.
Yeah, definitely erring on the safer side.
Yeah. Well, they keep calling school off, which, doesn't affect me in high school, but they keep calling my DBU classes off. And it's like, sooner or later, you're going to expect me to teach school. I don't want to get too used to this, We have Shandy Priddy on Zoom today from Portland, Maine. And we're going to talk about her being in a New York Times story. It's in today's issue of the New York Times. So show the headline, if you would, Josh. It's about what's going on in Portland, and particularly in the schools, and how ICE is basically taken over that town to a large degree. We hear all about Minneapolis, but we're not hearing as much about Portland, Maine. And you think, well, why Portland, Maine? Shandy's going to tell us why Portland, Maine. But there it is. Maine's immigrant students stay home as ICE operation ramps up. And so a lot of the things you're seeing in Minneapolis, maybe without all the notoriety, and it's so far, thankfully, without the great deal of violence that we've seen, you're seeing in Portland. And also what you're seeing in Portland are American citizens that are saying, enough of this, okay? And see, this is what we're going to get today with Shandy. We're going to talk about, only the most psychotic person on the left would say, let's keep all the murderers in and all this other stuff. But there has to be a better way of getting rid of the dangerous elements without having to go to this extreme. And, of course, I put it out on Facebook, and I always called everything from a libtard to a traitor to the cause, or whatever else that means. So that's always entertaining. Also, let's see a picture of Shandy, and we're going to put her phone number here for you. So, guys, get your pen and pencil out. How about that, Shandy? Would you like that? No. I said, say, what's her situation? Anyway, no, that's in the New York Times today, and I showed Robin that, and she's like, she's so proud. She wanted me to tell you that personally, that she's very proud of you, what you're doing.
Sweet. That picture, I had been bawling. So It's so great. I was like, that lady had me in tears. It was just terrible.
Yes. And so the gist of the story is we'll get to in a minute, but you were helping out a woman get her child to school because her husband had just been picked up by ICE as somebody that really is not the target of what most people wanted when they voted for Trump. I mean, I'm telling you right now, just off the get-go, only a couple of people I know on Facebook, and I don't know them personally, or get rid of all of them. I talked to like my friends in Sunday school who are pretty conservative. I could tell you that. Not a one of them are excited about what they see as these excesses going on. And they're also concerned about what it's doing to our country. And we're not talking about just some liberal perspective. I wanted to say right now, I doubt, for one thing, people on the far right are listening to my show because they've already written me off as some sort of Democrat fanatic or whatever. But if they stumble across them and say, you're on the outside of opinion, if you just think get rid of all of them just because they're here, you're definitely in the minority in that opinion. But you're also in the minority of the opinion if you say we need to make them all citizens today and all that other business. But we're not going into all that. We're just going to talk about your story. Your experiences, what's going on in Portland, Maine, and why Portland, Maine? I mean, you love it there, right?
Love it.
Yeah, it's a great place. So, I mean, well, let me go through and get the sponsors because they all want a piece of this. I know Otto does. He's still here, still at our place. Hey, was Gina's open before you left?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
for
good.
a couple of years.
No.
Yeah, I've only been gone since August, Allard.
Oh, well, that's right. But I forget that. I forget. You seem like you've been gone forever.
I know.
And that winter isn't going to bring you back? I don't understand that.
No, it's 23 right now. It was a -5 this morning. Yeah, it was fine. I went out without a coat.
Okay, fine. It's because, you liquored up or what? I mean, that helps.
It's not that cold. The air is really dry right now, and there's no wind, and the sun is shining. So.
All right, Our Place restaurant. A lot of people have been going there. I tell you what, we've been literally frozen in. I'm sure y'all handle this better. This is a common event for all.
We missed school on Monday, just so you know. Maine missed school on Monday.
Right, but you got the equipment to make it work for y'all pretty quickly, right? This is a common event for y'all. I mean, it happens probably 3 to 4 times a winter, I'd imagine. For us, we get a little ice on the ground, everything shuts down. So go to Our Place and go to Gina's. Go, do yourself a favor. Get out of the house tonight. Drive carefully, of course, but get out of the house and get yourself a pizza or a sub sandwich, or those hot dogs he makes are really good too. I really like them. So go ahead and do yourself a favor, because you've been cooped up since Saturday morning. This is the first time I left the house since Friday. Now driving over here to Crowley wasn't too bad. Now you stay off the side roads, but other than that, it's not too bad. Also, John Williams, I bet he's busy over at Old Pro Roofing, 817-734-2756. Now some people are finding out, I have a problem with my roof. And so John can help with you go through that. He can tell you what the problem is, if there is one. He'll tell you if you're fine. And if you need repairs, need a new roof, you need help with the insurance companies, which I'm sure they're getting flooded. I have a young lady in my BNI group that I bet right now her phone ain't quit ringing because she's with the insurance business. So there you go. But 817-734-2756. And John will come out there with Old Pro and check your roof. And these are local folks. They're about a block from City Hall. So you're dealing with people that are going to be around 6 months from now. So there you go. Also, my friend Jeff Kelly over at the Weathington Agency. You know Jeff, right?
I do. Yeah. Yes, love Jeff. Yes.
Nice man.
I was part of the Weathington Agency too. Yes. Yeah,
I remember that you towards the end before you went to your northern exile, I guess you'd call it. But 817-781-0546 if you're looking to move in the area. So Shandy, I guess if you want to move back, you can call Jeff.
I still have my license.
Okay, fine. But it's a Jeff at jeffkellyrealty.com.
I do love Jeff.
Yeah, and we didn't have our B&I meeting this morning, and poor Jeff didn't get the message. He texted me about 9 o'clock. Hey, where is everybody? Oh, Jeff.
That's hilarious.
That happened to me.
He's not afraid of the guys.
That happened to me about this time last year. I was invited somebody, and I'm sitting around, you didn't get the message, Allard. I'm sorry. Anyway, just a minute. Anyway, so let's talk. First of all, just on your personal story, you chose Portland, Maine. I mean, I hear nice things about Maine. People go up there in the fall and see the leaves change and all that. Why did you choose Portland to live there?
I do have a cousin who lives here. Mm-hmm. So, I haven't, it's not like I just threw a pen at the map and was like, let's go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love the East Coast. Always have loved the East Coast. Love Boston. It's one of my favorite cities behind New York City. But I'm not really a city girl,
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in Burleson, so I'm used to back roads and country, and Maine
mm-hmm.
is all of those things. Portland is about the size of Burleson. So it's not, it's not a thriving metropolis, but it's also, has a small town feel that I like. I also wanted seasons.
Yeah, that's true. I hear a lot of people, say that one reason why they moved to the Northeast is they like the fall and like the winter and like it's distinct seasons as opposed to it's hot or damn hot.
Well, it's when it starts, you have clothes that you wear all winter, right? And you're not back and forth between summer and winter and fall and spring.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it ends, it ends. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
So I just feel like, just for my mental health, it's just been better
mm-hmm.
to have things be more consistent.
Yeah. Well, also, a change of pace isn't a bad thing. I've been living here a long time, and every now and then I get a little bit wanderlust, I guess. My parents-in-law, if you will, Robin's parents live in North Carolina. We've talked every now and then about my moving near them and whatnot. Josh, hey, buddy, I'm not getting the link yet. So anyway, so I understand how you're feeling. But Portland, Maine, it's not the first place you think of, about moving out there. And it's not, and that's why all this stuff with ice and whatnot to me is so unusual, because we're going to get in a minute why ice. But first of all, let's talk about that. Why were you in that New York Times story?
What's interesting is
mm-hmm.
that literally just all happened, and I just stumbled upon it.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like they happened to be there because the South Portland teachers had been riding the buses
mm-hmm.
to protect their kids, to
mm-hmm.
go in and get the kids so the parents didn't have to come out, because that building in particular was being hit hard by ice, because there's a lot of asylum seekers in that specific building. And so there were 2 New York Times photographers that happened to be right there about telling the story about the teachers. And then I was making a delivery, and a lady she had almost missed the bus. Like her little boy had almost missed the bus. So she was just standing there hoping maybe one of the teachers would see her and get off the bus, but
mm-hmm.
nobody did. And so the bus left, And I walked in to make a delivery, and she just was just frozen. She wouldn't go out. And so, I just asked if she was okay. And she just asked if I was a DoorDash driver. And I said, well, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
And so I made the delivery there, and she asked if I would take her son to school, which, I mean, obviously, yes, because I know who I am, right? But she really had never seen me in her life.
And she was just desperate for somebody to help her out, sounds like.
Yes. And so, so essentially I said yes. We figured out there is a language barrier. She does speak pretty good English, but they've only been here 2.5 years, 2 years. And so her English, she doesn't get all the transitions. And so, but her little boy, he was helping me figure out where his school was and all of that. And so it was about a 10-minute drive. And she said, do you mind if I go with you? I'm like, well, of course, right? And so we drove her son to school. She got out, took him in, made sure he was safe. And then I drove her home. And obviously on the way there, we didn't talk a whole lot. She did mention that her husband was taken by ICE. So obviously her little boy knew that, but we didn't talk about, I purposely didn't want to traumatize him anymore, right? So we didn't really talk about those details. We talked more about his teacher and his friends and how school was. And she's pregnant, so talking about his baby brother coming and his other brothers. But on the way home, we chatted a little bit about what had actually happened. And I don't know exactly if he was coming off work. I don't know if they were at the laundromat. I don't know the circumstances of why they were together, but they were together across the street, which there is a laundromat. And her husband saw that ICE was pulling up, and he told his wife to walk to the building and not to look back. And so she did. And obviously, when you come from a place of, we don't understand here the types of environments that refugees and asylum seekers come from. They know danger, right? They're not going to stay and ask a million questions or assert their rights. They know danger, and they do their best to avoid it at all cost. And so she went in there, and ICE took him. They are from the Congo. They have 3 little boys, 1 little boy on the way. She broke down a little bit and said she just didn't understand why this was happening, because they've done everything they were supposed to do, and that her husband really loves America, and she just didn't understand. And of course, I broke down because I don't know how to explain to her what's happening and why. Because it's not right? Your husband's just swiped up. As far as you know, you're doing everything you're asked. He doesn't have a criminal record. They have an asylum case and people need to understand, on asylum cases, it's not like you apply for asylum and then 2 weeks later you're granted, right? It can take years upon years, court hearing after court hearing. It is not an easy process to go through.
Right. I posted this yesterday, and an attorney that works with this, a former student of mine, somebody you graduated a couple of years after, Ashley Kirk is her maiden name, Geisinger is her married name. And she has worked in these cases, and she talks about how difficult it is for people to get asylum, because it isn't like it. What happens is that in the Biden administration, people would find out Border Patrol officers say, "I want to seek asylum," and it wasn't like they were granted asylum right then; they were put into the system.
Right.
And like you said, it could take years. And the fact, I looked up some data to try to find out 2 things. One is how many of these people skip the asylum hearings, and the last set of hard numbers I had was from 2021. So I kept looking for something more recent. So I'm not going to say percentage-wise, just from something I might have read somewhere. So I can't.
Well, and I would say, why do they skip these hearings? Are they out of money? Can they not afford the attorney anymore?
There's all sorts of reasons why, and the assumption is that they're trying to evade the law. But that's the assumption. But by those who criticize this, I don't know, because I really couldn't find good information. The second thing I did find, though, as the last hard numbers and as of 2025, roughly just a little over a third of these asylum cases are granted. The rest are denied. So the
Right.
idea that it's an automatic ticket to the United States isn't
Right.
true. Now,
And then there's a process, right? That's what people understand. Like there's a process of going home. It's not just you get swiped up that day. You know, it's like, well, you have to leave. And yeah, do some people overstay their visas? For sure, but that's not a criminal offense.
It's a civil offense. You know,
Right.
it does violate ordinances and laws and all this, but there's no time in jail involved or anything like that. Also, what made it difficult, and I'm just trying to be, you know, even-handed, devil's advocate, whatever else. When Mr. Biden changed the rules of asylum, it did greatly increase the number of people that applied for asylum. The rules for asylum primarily, up to a certain point, up until like 2021, was that if your country was politically persecuting you, then that's what asylum was for. You know, if you were a part of a designated minority group, religious minority, ethnic minority, whatever, and you were being persecuted by your government or agents of the government, you could apply for asylum. And pretty much Mr. Biden changed it to be like climate change, economic distress, criminal pressure, whatever else. And then the last year he shut it down because of the political impact it was having. So so I'm just saying we do have a lot more of these people claiming asylum, but they were claiming asylum under the rules that were established then. And for, you know, we may not like the rule that Mr. Biden had. We may not like those changes, but that is that they were following the law at that time.
The new administration can make new rules. We're not saying like you can't say, okay, well, we're not honoring these anymore, or we're not honoring, but like to me, it should be people are not coming for that reason anymore. Right. Now we have these people. Let's figure out how to get them through the process faster without traumatizing them and their children and swiping them off the street and putting them in detention. So I actually I want to give a update. I actually took her groceries this weekend. And then I didn't see her then. I just dropped them because it was like -17 and I was cold that day. And we were about to get a really big snowstorm, so I didn't want to be stuck out. But I went by today because I had a doctor's appointment. It's right around the corner, and went in, and someone from Texas had donated some money that I asked me to give it to her, and so I did. And sat down with her boys. And what I didn't realize is the 7-year-old is the oldest. So she has a 7-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, and she's pregnant. And not that makes the story any sadder. It just, you know, I just wanted people to know that she has been in touch with her husband. She is in touch with the attorney. He was in Boston like the first day, and now he's in Arizona.
Arizona? What's this gentleman from Maine doing in Arizona?
I don't know. And the superintendent and all the teachers of her little boy have written letters in support of this father who is extremely involved with his kids, is always at all of the meetings, all of the events. So, you know, they're trying, but it's just like, we don't know what the new system is. Is there a place for them to not be separated, or is it just like, well, too bad we caught you and now you're gone? We don't know. There's no real answers.
Well, among many of my concerns about all this, we haven't even talked about Minneapolis yet, but I'll get to that in a minute. But one of my concerns is that when you retroactively pass laws, you're going to sweep a lot of people up. And fine, Trump comes in, he's elected on a certain basis, and he, as president, can change the rules, but they should be from that day forward.
Going forward.
Not going back the last 4 years and try to undo what's been done. You know, this whole issue of illegal immigration also, I think, gets very much distorted by both far left and far right. And so most of us in the middle are like, we just want some common sense, or we don't want the crooks here, we don't want the criminals here. But
I think that's why it's so important for the middle to start speaking. Like, let's not. I think that what you have to realize is that not everybody who disagrees with you is either a libtard or a MAGA, right? Like, So the middle does have to speak, and I think we can have disagreements about this without calling people names, without attacking people's character, and without saying that these people are not human beings.
Well, tomorrow at 11, I'm doing a show probably by myself about this situation, more about Minneapolis there as well. But what bothers me so much is that, particularly here in Texas, we've been living with non-documented people forever, right? And we didn't seem to really have a problem about it. I worked with them, when I was much younger, and I had no problem with them. And now it's like it's been not just so politicized, but so racialized that it's become something that tears the country apart.
I think that anytime somebody wants power, they need a common enemy.
Well,
and the immigrant is the easiest common enemy, right? Because they don't really have any real rights other than, they do, because everybody gets due process. That's what people don't understand.
That's exactly right.
Distort that,
Mm-hmm. I've had a couple of people respond on my social media Facebook page that about due process not being applicable to them. No, that's not true at all. The courts have ruled that for over a century.
Right.
That people that are residents of this country, one way or the other, still have certain rights. Now, somebody here illegally doesn't have the other types of rights, but they do have the right to due process under the law. And the courts have ruled that continuously, and has been an accepted norm by both parties up until now.
There's always been a reciprocity with states. If someone is convicted of a crime after due process and they are not from this country, they get deported.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're saying is you're just wanting to swipe people up and call them criminals.
It's also,
but you don't really know.
But also it's the manner in which these people are being swept up that bothers me as well, and bothers a lot of us conservative types who, all our lives, conservatives always have had this image of government being an oppressive force. And now we see in the streets of our cities, guys dressed up in commando gear, masked, just sweeping up people indiscriminately, it seems like. And that's like the very conservative nightmare that we grew up with, is having a dictatorial, oppressive military force in our streets. Now, so when I look at it from the conservative point of view, and by God, I still am, because I haven't changed just because the Republican Party decided to be whatever Trump decided to be today.
Right.
When I look at it from the conservative point of view, it's like, this is exactly what we feared. This is why we waved the Second Amendment around so much.
Right.
We don't want our police to be militarized, but look at it, what's going on.
That's exactly right. And so, I want to make a point about Maine. I actually did look at the numbers before I got on. So we've already talked about Maine is the whitest state in the union.
Yep.
People don't even realize, but it's also, 0.4% of our population is undocumented immigrants.
Now, some would say, well, how can you make that determination that there's so many that are unaccounted for?
Well, there's not that many.
All right. You can just see it for yourself, huh? Yeah.
It's too cold here.
Why is Portland, though, a destination point for people seeking asylum? Not like New York City or whatever.
It is a refugee city. Not a refugee,
sanctuary city?
Sanctuary city.
Okay.
Portland is a sanctuary city. Yes, but and it has been for years. But the mayor talks about everybody loves their immigrant population here. Maine is a split state. There are extreme conservatives, there are extreme Democrats, and then there are a lot of moderate people. Just like anywhere else. We're not metropolitan, so it's just, I don't know. It's just interesting to me that the states that are being chosen are very interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. How's that?
Well, I'm from Texas, so I've lived like you said, we've lived our whole lives with undocumented people all around, and never seem to be bothered. But if you really want to get all the immigrants out, why are you not in Texas where there's 2.1 million of them? Why are you in Maine where there's 5,000?
Would the tilt of the politics of each state have something to do with that?
obviously I cannot prove it, but patterns don't lie.
Mm-hmm.
So when you are constantly bombarding cities that disagree with you, I mean, you just have to look at it like, just look at the pattern. You know, we were in Portland, Oregon. Well,
Mhm.
Portland, Oregon is more kooky than Portland, Maine. I promise that.
Mm-hmm.
They're very Democratic.
Mm-hmm.
You were in LA, very Democratic, right? You're not in Northern California. I mean, I know San Francisco is a Democratic city, but Northern California, I lived there for 5 years, is all migrant workers. Like there are orchards upon orchards upon orchards and rice fields. That is where the majority of our food comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, if you're wanting to swipe up migrants, why were you not in Northern California?
Well, I do remember a few months ago, some of the farmers were making an appeal to Mr. Trump and to not take their field hands, and Trump graciously gave them an exemption. You know, as
Right,
if
but these aren't criminals again. Why is he graciously, like, we have to go to the foot of the emperor and
Mhm.
ask him to please graciously not take our people?
Well, that's kind of where I'm at, is that a lot of people, when it comes to this illegal immigration movement, let me just be very clear. Most of the people I talk to personally are pretty rational people. And most of the people I talk to are, maybe a little left or a little right of center. Some are a little bit further, but I don't deal with kooks on either side. And all my friends and most of my relatives are like, rational. And what they see is, okay, nobody wants the dangerous element here. But what I hate is that argument. Then I got this on Facebook yesterday when I was publicizing the show. Well, then you must be in favor of keeping the criminals in. And I just said, that's such a lame argument.
Well, I think
It's a lame argument.
let's be real about this.
Uh-huh.
When it first started, when this argument came up, when it became a
Mhm.
whole hot button for Trump and the Republican Party, it was, we're going to get the worst of the worst, right? I
Mhm.
mean, we all heard it. We're getting the
Right.
worst of the worst. We're going to get all the criminals out. And then it was like, well, they're here undocumented, so they're committing a crime too. I hear that all the time.
I do too.
You know what I mean? It's like, okay, hold on, because you're warping what the message is, because now it's just like, oh, well, if they don't have documents, they're criminals.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's not the worst of the worst. So you're willing at this point, because you don't want to admit that you were wrong and they're not doing it properly. Now you're willing to separate complete families. You're willing for a mom of almost about to be 4 baby boys to not have their father. Because why?
And this gentleman you're talking about, this man from Congo, he had gone through the process, right? That was set up at that time. So that's what I'm getting at earlier, is that, if you're out there in the vast listening audience and you don't like what Mr. Biden did, and I got to admit, I did not like just the pell-mell bum rush into the border.
So you voted him out.
What now? Sorry.
So you used your voice to vote and voted him out, and from that point forward, you can change the rules.
Right. But I didn't vote for Mr. Trump. Okay, I could,
No, I knew you didn't.
Yeah, and neither did Robin, because and we're both conservative people.
Right.
But this isn't conservatism. All right.
No.
Back in 1986, Ronald Reagan had 3 million immigrants, and they gave a pathway to amnesty and then eventually citizenship. I wonder what the conservative movement now would say about Mr. Reagan. I remember it clearly because I remember there was not very far from where I lived at the time.
They would say you were lying. They wouldn't believe it.
I saw it with my own eyes. I was a student at UTA at the time, and there was an immigration office about 3 blocks from UTA, and there was a line down the road practically of people applying for this amnesty program. And they could look; they're not going to bother looking up, but they can if they want to. But it was in 1986, and Reagan got some static. But the thing about it was, at the time, the Senate was a Republican Senate, and they had to vote this in.
Right.
And so, that's when I say what you see in the day with the Republican Party is nothing like what I supported all these years. And
every party has always had its flaws, right? Like you just have, but this is different. This is like a humanitarian crisis. This is not a flaw.
Well, what's interesting also about this is that in, I think it's like 2006, there was Bush and a bipartisan group of senators wanted to create a worker visa system that would allow people to go back and forth across the border to work, particularly like in the agricultural areas or construction areas. and
Right.
things like that. So they wouldn't have to, it constantly be, if they went back to Mexico or Guatemala,
Right.
where they're from, they wouldn't have to risk it every time. They could just come
Right.
and it got shot down primarily because, be real frank, the Democrat Party at the time was so strongly committed to the unions that the unions did not want
Right.
the labor issue, cheap wages issue.
Right.
Obama tried something similar, same thing. And so any attempt to be like to hit that middle point is always going to run across certain interest groups that one party or the other find too valuable to alienate. And that's
Right.
the problem here. And here we are now, right?
Yeah.
And I'm always I'll say this again tomorrow, but I'm almost really get upset, particularly with Texans who are so adamant about getting rid of all the immigrants, except for the one that mows their yard.
Or does drywall.
Yeah, or
or
puts up the
tile.
drywall, or the one that's on the construction site, and
Yeah.
or the one that's in the kitchen of their favorite Mexican food restaurant or whatever.
Right.
It's like all those people are bad except for the ones I know, and then they're okay.
But isn't that how it's all working now? It's we're going to do this until it affects us. Oh,
Mhm.
wait, it affects us.
Mhm.
And that's why we have to have empathy, right? Because it doesn't affect me. That woman's husband being deported doesn't affect my personal life in any way.
I
My
think
life
it
tomorrow
has.
wouldn't
No.
change if I didn't know her story. Right?
No, it just affected you. I saw the emotion about 20 minutes ago.
But what I'm saying is now I know it, right? Now I know it. But before I met her, I was on this train. It's not like I just flip-flopped from, oh, everybody's bad. And then I met this woman. Oh, never mind.
Mhm.
I felt this already out of empathy, right? And I acted because I already felt that way.
You feel like that
But-
you were put in that place by the Almighty?
Yes. In fact, I was going to tell you one part I didn't tell you. I asked her before I dropped her back at her house, I said, are you religious? And she asked me what I meant. And she said, well, I love Jesus. And she said, do you love Jesus? And I said, of course I love Jesus. So then obviously we prayed before she got out of the car, and she just said, thank God that you came.
I don't think that was an accident at all. I really do believe that you were put there by a divine appointment.
Well, I don't know anybody.
And
here,
you're getting
right?
getting your story in the New York Times was that way as well. I think that.
I mean, that was like really strange.
Well, but the thing about it, I think I wish more people have had that kind of encounter, because then when they are put face to face with the reality of what they're talking about, sometimes they're not quite as adamant as they were before. I mean, I'd like
Right. And I also think that's why I personally don't like to talk about like good acts, right? Like, oh, I did this for a homeless guy on the corner or whatever. I don't like that because I feel like that takes away.
It does, but this is something that, this is something people need to know.
Different in the fact that I feel like I can be a bridge in a way of like, me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Many people know my life. You know my story. And so like, if you're hearing this from someone then it becomes more real. It's not like this story that happened in Minnesota or this random story in Maine that doesn't affect me in Texas, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, I know that lady. I know her, and I know what she believes and how she acts, and if she has integrity or not. And so that's the hope. It's like the New York Times reporter asked me, do you want to give your name? And I'm like, well, yeah. She goes, well, you'd be surprised at how many people won't because they're scared. And I said, well, I mean, if there ever was a time to use my privilege, it's now.
Your privilege.
Yeah.
Your opportunity.
No, I feel like I do have privilege in this country.
Okay.
Because there are things that I will never have to deal with.
I hear you.
As
I know what you're saying.
Middle class white lady.
That's true, and I don't dwell on that term, I guess, that much.
You don't have to, and that's fine. You don't have to agree with me on that term.
No. I don't disagree. I don't disagree with you at all. I really don't, because
my
you're right.
My husband, as a middle class white lady, when I was married, my husband would have never been at risk of being swiped off the street.
Right. I'm sure when that woman felt a great deal of comfort, the fact that you were behind the wheel and you weren't going to be stopped by ICE.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And had the situation been reversed, she might have been.
That's exactly right.
And I get you, and I understand, and I do believe that there is a racial element in this whole escapade with Mr. Trump, and because by his own statements, by his deputy chief of staff Stephen Miller, who is a creature of the dark, they've made it very clear that there is a racial element involved, and then
I mean, they're not hiding it.
No,
I don't. If you choose not to see it, then you just truly have blinders on, because they are not hiding the fact that they don't like people of color.
I always wondered if this mass rush of immigrants was from like the Scandinavian countries, what the reaction of a lot of people would be. But since they're coming from Central America and Africa and whatever.
Canadians. I live 5 hours from the Canada border.
Yeah, but why would Canadians want to go here?
They're back and forth just like people in Mexico, right?
Yeah. You think Canadians want to come to America? Are there legal Canadians in America? I'm wondering now,
Yeah, I mean, people in Canada own property in Maine.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm just saying that I do. People don't want to admit this. They want to look at it as this is a criminal matter strictly. No, I think there's a racial element involved because you could have been an illegal immigrant from Ireland for all they knew, but they would never have stopped you.
No.
Whereas you could have been a lifelong resident of Portland, Maine, and black, and you might have run that risk.
Yes.
And then there's no way getting around that, guys. I mean, I'm listening. I'm really, sometimes when I'm talking to you, I'm also talking to that handful of people in my head that are just so adamant that Trump is doing the right thing. Well, he's not doing the right thing the right way, and he's not doing the right thing really, because by basically creating this climate of fear, there's more to it than just immigration here, because Maine again, 5,000 undocumented immigrants in the entire state that we know of, right? I mean, I'm going to tell you that's probably about right, just visually. And there's only 4.6% that were actually naturalized citizens who are from a different country here. Right.
So even if you're talking 5% of people don't look like anybody else, there's a strategy here. And, it's not lost on me that the governor of Maine, before I moved here, took Trump to court.
Yeah. Well,
it's not lost on me that Governor Walz ran against him in the last presidency, presidential election. It's not lost on me that Governor Abbott speaks all his praises, and Texas, gets whatever they want.
Well, and what bothers me is, the old-fashioned conservative. I'm getting pushed into this dialogue where I have to, reconsider a lot of things over the years. And I always thought that one of the conservative values I always had was the equality of people. And, like Dr. King would say, the judgment of the content of your character, not the color of your skin and things of that nature. And then now we're being forced to make different choices. And I'm not going to do that. And if someone wants to call me a libtard or a traitor to the cause, which I got.
What's the cause?
The cause.
What's the cause?
I didn't even respond to that one. I'm not going to get involved in an argument with somebody like that. When I don't get a lot of trash on Facebook like I used to maybe that 4 years ago. It happens less frequently, but when it does, and I get some guy that basically says, "Well, then you must want to have criminals in your country." I don't even respond to that kind of stupid statement because no one wants criminals in their country. Even liberal Democrats don't want liberal criminals in their country. But it just here's what I would say about the conservative view on immigration is that you have a process that you follow, and then those that don't qualify, you deport, and those that do qualify, you move through the process. That's the deal. That's been our country from the beginning. And now it's been warped.
The system is very complicated. That's what people need to understand. As an American citizen, most people who say this obviously are citizens. They've never navigated the system. So what do they know about the system? They know nothing.
I know a little about it because I've had students that have navigated the system, some while they were in my class, some many years afterwards. And it's not easy. It's not easy becoming a citizen in the United States, but you have to really do want it. And these people, the people that come here, I hear a story, an anecdote that I could put on Facebook about some guy came here to get all the government benefits. I promise you, that's the vast, vast minority of the people come here. They
You know
come.
how many other countries get free health care?
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying they come. I've had this argument with several people how much resources they use. I'm thinking they don't pay taxes. Well, that's not true for one thing.
90, I posted this recently. In 2023, undocumented workers paid $90 billion in taxes.
The taxes that these people are referring to that they don't pay are income taxes or Social Security. Well, first of all, they're not getting benefits from Social Security, so they're not a drain on it either. Second of all, little under 50% of American citizens don't pay income taxes because they don't make enough money if you take all the deductibles out. So, so what tax?
Billionaires don't pay income tax. So we'll circle there.
Well, then, okay. And then you have, but, they say, well, they take up all our resources, like emergency room care or schooling and whatever else. My response is whatever they take from the system, they add to the system by their labor and whatnot, by their purchases and whatever else. Now, you go to an emergency room at Fort Worth, and you're going to be probably the only English speaker in there. But on the other hand,
they actually spent under $9 billion of emergency room care, and they paid in $90 billion.
Well, I'm just saying that they whatever they take from one, they're going to give to the other in terms of lower wages, and that's another thing we need to consider. I mean, a lot of these people that talk about illegal immigrants also benefit from their labor, period.
Sure.
Their homes are built or roofs are built or their meals are prepared.
Housing is going to go up. Wages are going to go down. And a lot of people aren't going to work for the wages.
No, they're not.
Going to be like, well, no, I'm not doing that job for $8 an hour.
What I'm going to tell this woman who comes to risks her life to come clean the toilets in our school or whatnot. Get out of here. You don't belong here. That's why I really have a hard time with this because I have a hard time with it because it conflicts not just with my conservative values, but with my Christian values. Now, again, I don't, so another one accused me of being in favor of open borders. I am not, because you're asking for trouble. You are asking. There has to be
a process. There has to be a process. I don't think anybody says, unless you're like really far left, I don't think anybody says they don't want a process. Well, but there has to be a clear process.
And I did not like the fact that the wave of immigrants we had coming in under the Biden administration, it wasn't so many of those people that you'd see in the media about, some poor man with his family. Yeah, open borders do allow for an avenue of drugs and for terrorists and whatever else. And so you do need secure borders. You do need a process of keeping the borders very tightly regulated and watched over, but you also need a process in which people can come to this country without having what's happening to them now. This is what they were escaping from in many cases, is paramilitary activities in their country.
That's where they get their guns.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I it violates a lot of the values that I grew up with. And then but I got to admit, what bothers me the most is how willing some people are to accept this as normal and okay.
Right.
I know how they were taught and raised in many cases, or we came from similar cultures and background, and how willing they are to accept this as normal. And it's not,
No.
and I think also, we go back to your state of Maine. I think Trump is sending the rest of the state of Maine a message. He sent in the state of Minnesota a message. Don't mess with me, to put it frankly,
Chicago.
And and is this what conservatives want for their government, is to rule by fear and not by a constitutional consensus?
Well, and then let's break that down, Allard. If we talk about the Republican Party, as it was always a states' rights, correct?
Right.
Like small federal government, states' rights.
Individual rights, things of that nature.
When you have the federal government overstepping the state and going into the state and saying, you're going to do it my way, it's one thing everybody's talking about, there's all this, they're using federal funds wrong. Okay, well, do an investigation. You don't go swipe up people.
You talk about Minnesota?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. I was going to address that tomorrow.
You don't swipe up people because some random person said there was, the wrong use of federal funds.
Mm-hmm.
Or you work with the state, or you say, we need to figure out a way to make this not happen, but like, you don't get to just say, oh, well, you're using those funds wrong, so now I'm going to send the military in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not states' rights on any level.
Yeah. Why do you think it's the American people are rising up like they are now? Because this has been an issue for years, like we talked about. But why do you think the American people are rising up now?
I think because it's so blatant and it's just so like in your face. Like, it's just, like they're not even denying it. Like, when you have somebody shot and then not even, I'm telling you, I found that out, and like 20 minutes later, the government had already sent out a formal message.
Mm-hmm.
How does that make any sense? They don't know. There is no way they know what happened exactly on that day, 20 minutes after it happened.
Well, I'm just saying, like we've talked about before, for all our adult lives, the immigration issue's always been there. The deportation issue's always been there. Why now has it reached to this degree?
Well, because they're going into neighborhoods, knocking on doors, knocking down doors. It's like in your face. Like, I've always known about ICE. Like, it's always kind of been a joke if you're on North Side, like, oh, watch for ICE or whatever. I don't think I ever saw an ICE officer in my life.
I haven't.
In Fort Worth, Texas.
Right.
Right. And now they're just like swarms of them.
Mm-hmm. I don't know the subject well enough to know how deportation processes are handled in, say, the Clinton through Obama administrations, but they were, right?
Well, of course they were, but I think it was like through the due process. It was either you're convicted criminal, so you've gone through the due process and now we send you home. I actually know someone who was convicted of a crime and he was sent back to Peru. Or you get on the radar and you do something wrong, or you don't show up to you overstay your visa. And then when you do show up, they take you and say, no, you didn't do the process right. Now you got to go, right? They don't mass exodus into warehouses people. That has never happened here.
Well, I think also the advent of social media and whatnot has helped illustrate this issue more, for one thing. And
I think we video everything. People talk about, why are people videoing? Because what happens if someone's not there videoing? If they're going to act like this when someone's actually videoing them, how are they acting when no one is watching?
This is kind of a personal question, but, do you at the middle of the night wake up and worry about our country? Because I do. I do. I'm not a great sleeper anyway. I wake up 2 or 3 times. That's what old men do, about at least twice a night, get up and go to the men's room, so to speak. And so it takes me a while to go to sleep, but I worry about this country very much so. And I worry not just about this country, but I worry about how willing are people just to jettison everything they ever believed in just because of one man.
Yes.
And that bothers me more than anything else.
About that. I also have 3 kids who are navigating early adulthood that, right now they're so influxed with what's happening in our country that, they should be doing fun things. And they are doing fun things, but people don't realize how that undertone of fear can change everything, I didn't live with this kind of fear in my 20s. It was just like, my work, I had a test that I had to study for. That was my worst stress, right?
Right. I don't know how many students I went to school with that weren't there legally, because I went to a pretty white school, so to speak, in Plano, Texas, But like I said, I worked with them, and it was not uncommon at all. I worked for a landscape irrigator and also a commercial lawn company, and we'd drive by Home Depot, and there'd be a bunch of workers there, day laborers, and they'd jump on the truck and work all day, and they'd get paid and have lunch, and no one thought anything of that. And no one felt at risk by that and whatnot. And people say, well, you were exploiting the workers. Well, no. They'd much rather get paid $50 in cash and have lunch than where they came from, that kind of thing. Because that was,
right.
And now it's like we see the what looks like just warfare on our streets. And it's not just from radical protesters. It's from guys in commando gear with their faces covered
Right.
and with tactical weaponry and things of that nature. Now, tomorrow I'm going to talk about more about Minneapolis and all that other business, but this is kind of where I'm leading to. Is like, this and many other areas, I have a great deal of concerns about our country. It's not even related to immigration, how terribly we treat our allies and things of that nature. That's another show for another time.
Right.
But I am concerned about our country very much so. And it's not just because of the current administration. It's that how people are willing to ignore the warning signs of what this current administration is doing or are glad of it. One of the
Right.
two. That bothers me a lot. And,
I think, glad of it. I tell people all the time, like, obviously, I don't want anybody to be glad of it, but I respect people for if they're going to say it out loud, because at least I know who you are.
yeah. Well, I've said that kind of too. Just, let's
It's the
call
quiet
players.
people. It's the people who just are like, I don't want to deal with politics. I don't want to be a part of this. I'll just put my head in the clouds and I'll just go about my life. Well, you're going to wake up one day and not have the life you had.
Well, I could tell you doing this podcast, as long as I've done it, there's times I thought, I really don't want to talk about this. I'm tired of it. But I keep coming back because I guess I'm an addict or something. But I also think it's important to be up to date on what's all that other business. But I tell you, it could be pretty depressing. And again, it's not just whatever Trump's yelling about now, or that Stephen Miller's greasy eel is talking about now, or Kristi Noem, and all this other stuff. They are what they are. It's the people that are okay with this that really bother me. It's like, how can you be okay with the militarization of our police? How can you be okay with the rampant disrespect for the Constitution? I put on Facebook about 3 weeks ago a comment Mr. Trump said about how his own morality is his only basis for governing.
I made 3 comments on that one.
Yeah. And I had people that defended that. I'm like, are you?
Of course.
What? Are you kidding
It was his
me?
own words.
Yeah. And, well, not just that, but they said, well, I'm okay with that. You're willing to just chunk the whole Constitution of limited government and acknowledged laws and powers just because you want to base all our governing on the morality of one man. That's also called a kingship, a monarchy. And people are okay with that. And I'm just like, what is the matter with you?
I think some of what is happening, and this is kind of a hot sports opinion, Allard, so
Right.
buckle up. Okay?
All right. All right.
Some of what is happening is you have a lot of Christians who have intermingled their faith indefinitely with their politics.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, and I think a lot of people have done that for years, but what happens is these Christians think maybe, this is the end times, right? So we're just going to sit back and let the end times happen. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's fine because Jesus is coming back, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to be swept up. Jesus is coming back. And this is obviously the end times. Look at Israel. Look at this. Look at that.
We'll see. I mean, I remember I grew up in the late 70s when Late Great Planet Earth was out, that book, and we were convinced that the end times was the early 80s and all this other stuff.
This is what I'm saying. For the last 2,000 years, we keep creating these patterns and saying, look, it's the end times. Maybe we're allowing this stuff to happen because we just want the end times so bad.
Is your phone nearby, by the way? Well, Robin just texted you.
Oh, she did?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I don't have my... Oh, yes. Oh.
Yeah. I got to pay for your groceries next. Is that for the grocery run for this lady?
Oh.
Did you see that?
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm sure groceries are very inexpensive in Maine. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, but minimum wage in Portland is $19 an hour. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good grief. Anyway, we're getting close to the end here. We've said a lot of things on our heart, and I look at myself in particular, and I think, would I had responded to these things like I am now 10, 15 years ago? Maybe not. But I can't help see what I'm seeing and not feel convicted by it, both as not just a conservative person, but as a Christian person, I am angry as hell about the way that people are just don't have any concern about the way our Constitution has been trashed, and that they're okay with it.
Yeah.
And the hypocrisy of it is that Biden or Obama had done the exact same things with the exact same methods, they'd be setting themselves on fire in indignation.
Well, that's always my question, right? Because I voted Republican until 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then once I saw Trump, like, I even gave the man a chance. For what reason, I do not know.
Well, I know why I voted. I voted for Trump in 2016 because I couldn't handle Hillary Clinton, and I still can't.
Okay, so, but then it was like, okay, I can see the writing on the wall, and I did not. But the reality is that I ask that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Take Trump out of office, put Obama in office, and let's say the same stuff is happening. Is your response the same?
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't be.
Well,
my response would be the same.
I'd like to think mine is
because it's wrong.
I had several constitutional issues with Mr. Obama, very much so. But
and you speak up, and you say this isn't okay.
Yeah, but then that's because I didn't like Democrats or Obama, or there's some racial component and some blah blah blah, and it's all rubbish. But the point is that I feel like I've been fairly consistent. I have changed on certain things, yes, but I think I've been still within the construct of conservative constitutional approaches. I may not have exactly the same opinion, but I haven't changed the boundaries of what I base those opinions on. I think people now
that's because that's your character.
Well,
that's not your political leaning.
No, I like to think so, but I just like, that's what bothers me about this country, just how willing too many people are. And here's the thing about it is, I'm not going to pick on Republicans. The Democrats did the same thing. I mean, when Biden came in, and if Newsom or somebody else like that becomes president, you're going to see the two sides switch. And I would say the American people.
Well, but this is the problem. We have to change that. We can't just keep on this pendulum of swings that are extreme, because we'll never unite the country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I'm all worn out. I bet you are too. But I have to go to the grocery store too, apparently.
I will say, here's what I do want to say. I never thought I would move to Maine and have to deal with immigration.
Yeah, I would think so. And I never thought that we'd be in a situation where we're having to confront basically militarism on our streets. And people want to. I'm staying away from the F word, not that F word, but fascism.
Right.
Right. But people always make this comparison to Nazi Germany. Well, it's harder and harder when you see combat in your streets and certain people being targeted.
Yeah.
And it's so. If it isn't, give me a reason to believe that it isn't.
Right.
I still believe in this country. And we've gone through hard times before. History class will teach you that. You had a great history teacher, I know that much. Yeah, well, something like that.
The 60s were pretty.
Yeah, the 60s were just as bad. A lot of people.
In the early 70s with the Vietnam War.
And, we had terrorist bombings more so then than we do now.
Lots of bombings.
Yeah, and so we've gone through this before, and we come out okay on the other end, and I believe we still will. But there's going to be a lot of hurt people in between. A lot of damaged families, a lot of damaged people. So I do believe that.
Well, I think we have to stop looking at specific people, specific genders, specific races, or specific statuses in our country as the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because you can't, or specific political groups as the enemy, right?
Right.
So, and that's where I think it's so important for Republicans, lifelong Republicans like you, conservatives who have always been conservative, like, you have to speak up. Like, you have to encourage each other to speak up, because once, we're never going to get the zealots on either side. Mm-hmm. But once the moderates know, oh, okay, there are some lifelong conservatives that get it. Like, they're not for this. Mm-mm. They're speaking against this. They're waking up and seeing this. Like, that's when you empower everybody.
So you're putting it all on me, are you? All right.
Not you. I just think I'm going to encourage people. And here's the thing. I speak up because I was a conservative. Mm-hmm. And not that I've lived as much life as you, but I was conservative till 2020. That was 6 years ago. So I was in my 40s.
Yeah.
And I think it's more important than ever to say, Are we going to hold the party we've supported our whole lives accountable?
Well, Ronald Reagan was a New Deal Democrat. And when he ran as a conservative and identified as conservative in the 60s and ran as a Republican and for governor and all that, he said, I didn't leave the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party left me. That's how I feel about the Republican Party. It's left me. And so and people that could serve Republican Party with conservatism really are mistaken today, because Republican Party is Trumpism, and that's it. And and I've ranted and railed about tariffs, for example. That's one of the least.
Don't get started on tariffs.
Yeah,
We'll be here all day.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, we will. And I got to go. Josh got to go. What do you think, Josh? You worried? He's over the young boy here.
I'll save that for tomorrow. How's that sound?
Okay, fine. I'm going to ask you a lot of questions tomorrow, Josh.
I'll have some answers, hopefully.
You think so? Okay. I hope so. Going to write all this down. All right. Like I said, tomorrow about 1 o'clock, I'm going to be doing this again about more.
And it won't be with me, so y'all don't have to see my face again.
Are you kidding me? My phone is blowing up. I want her number. Anyway. Yeah, okay. Well, bless your heart. I hope you're doing well.
Back to Texas, so.
Well, hope the kids are doing okay, and
They're great.
and hope the weather treats you better. I mean, but you asked for it. But
No, the weather's fine. It doesn't bother me at all.
Okay, all right. Well, bless your heart for what you're doing, and we will see y'all tomorrow at 1. Or no, 11 o'clock. Oops, I almost got that wrong. Tomorrow at 11 o'clock.